Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Listening to Lancaster with the Hourglass. My name's Leah Zickmund. I'm the executive director here at the Hourglass, and I'm joined today by two members of Next Generation Lancaster, KJ Myers and Jordan Nye, who are going to talk to us about how Next Generation Lancaster formed, what they're up to, and kind of what their vision is for supporting the next generation here in Lancaster. KJ, Jordan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you
Yeah,
for having
thanks for
us,
having
Leah.
us.
Absolutely. I'd love to give you both just some time to talk about Next Generation is something that you do outside of your 9 to 5. So share with us a little bit about what you both do on a day-to-day basis. And maybe KJ, if you want to start first.
Sure. Yeah, hello everybody. My name's KJ Myers. I'm from Lancaster County and currently work full time for my family business here in Lancaster called Kegel's Produce wholesale company delivering fresh fruits and vegetables to food organizations, so restaurants, hotels, schools, hospitals, things of that nature. And very blessed and fortunate to be in this position and just want to continue the business and keep it going. And I have two younger brothers, and we're the fourth generation of the company. So just looking to keep it going.
Thanks, KJ. What about you, Jordan?
Hey, I'm Jordan Nye. I work at GSL Public Affairs as a contract lobbyist. So I've always been independently interested in politics and civic engagement, and this is the newest iteration of that. So by day, I work out of the Harrisburg Capitol often, and I am very fortunate to kind of be the middleman between private sector companies and the Pennsylvania state government and service all sorts of private sector clients, some of which are directly related to my passion, which is fitness and nutrition and regenerative agriculture. So I feel very fortunate, for example, to represent Rodale Institute, which is a regenerative research farm. And they're conducting all sorts of trials to show the difference between organic and regenerative farming versus conventional farming. So that's kind of parlayed into an independent passion in fitness and nutrition. But that also goes hand in hand with my independent interest in Lancaster County. I would consider myself a Lancaster County enthusiast, so I'm very excited to sit down with you and talk a little bit more about building up the next generation of Lancaster.
Thanks, Jordan. That's actually a connection that I didn't realize. Our executive director here at the Hourglass before my time was Diana Martin. And before Diana was at the Hourglass, she was at Rodale. So
It's
very
all interconnected, one
I know
degree of
we all love
separation.
Lancaster, and that happens. Like we're all 1 degree separated. Um, so I wanted to start with you, KJ. I've seen this story of how Next Generation Lancaster started, shared on LinkedIn, and as we've started to chat, that this was something that you kind of brought to life while you were still in school. And you were in class and you started this LinkedIn group. But I want to kind of like push on that more and ask what, if you can remember and take yourself back to that moment, like what was the focus and what were you hoping to accomplish when you did that?
Sure. So yeah, I was a senior at St. Joe, and I was sitting in class board and noticed that myself, I was in some LinkedIn groups for other networks and decided to make this LinkedIn group for Lancaster called Next Generation of Lancaster and sent out invites to my friends and professionals I knew from the area. And I came up with that name and that phrase because the phrase next generation has been following me my entire life. KJ, you're the next generation of this company. You have big shoes to fill. Are you ready for all this responsibility? And as like I said earlier, like I am very blessed and fortunate to be the position I am in right now. But I wanted to shed a different light on that phrase, and wanted to connect people in Lancaster and grow this community and build this next generation of Lancaster. And so made this LinkedIn group, and then a couple of months down the road, got a phone call from a good friend of mine named EJ. And he's like, "Hey Jay, what's going on?" I'm like, "What's up?" And he's like, "Hey, we gotta make a networking group in Lancaster and make it on LinkedIn." And I was like, "EJ, are you messing with me right now?" And he's like, "No, why?" I go, "Dude, I made that and you're in the group." And he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. Well, I want to partner up with you and do it and let's build it." And I said, "Okay, let's go." Um, so we've been doing it for about a year and a half, I'd say. We had our first event back in May of 2024. And ever since then, we've built a team of 6 right now. and four other volunteers have joined EJ and I, and it's been great. Learned a lot working with all these guys and hosting events month to month and collaborating and meeting other professionals in the Lancaster area and collaborating and getting people together in the same room. I enjoy setting up and I enjoy being a part of that movement, and that's just something I want to keep going and keep growing with our team and keep giving back to Lancaster County because at the end of the day, like I said, born and raised here, and all I want to do is give back to this community.
And that's something that we all share in common. I think when we last met, we talked about all of us being born and raised in Lancaster County, going off to school and coming back and really wanting to have some way that we're contributing to the community here, whether that's bringing young people together, intergenerational relationships. And Jordan, I'm really curious what your path was to getting involved with Next Generation Lancaster and how did you hear about it?
Yes, so I just stumbled upon the LinkedIn group through mutual connections. KJ and I went to high school together, and it was one of those events where I saw that it was at Cavalar Meat Company. I was excited to go to Cavalar. Who doesn't love Cavalar? And when I got there, it blew any kind of expectation I previously had out of the water because it wasn't just another networking organization. I mean, I absolutely love people. I love fostering that community connection and talking to people. But that was just one aspect of what really attracted me to Next Generation because they also had this educational component to the event. So, about halfway through the networking, we all sit down at the tables at Cavalar and we get to hear from Brock Snyder from Ula Bowls and then Steve Cavalar from Cavalar about their stories and their entrepreneurial journeys. And they shared so much industry knowledge and experience and expertise with us that really was inspiring to, a room of young people who want to be the next generation of Lancaster, who want to be community leaders and do the things that Steve and Brock have already done. And that was when I was really interested in learning more about the organization. So when KJ and EJ sent around a Google form asking for us to volunteer, I signed up and I said, count me in. I'm a Lancaster enthusiast. I want to be involved in the community. And ever since, we've all been bought into fostering this dynamic network where there are these community leaders, aspiring community leaders, connecting with community leaders who have already done the thing.
And what are some things that you're hearing in those conversations? Like, is it wisdom sharing? Like, what is this group of Next Generation hungry for when you're meeting with these people?
I think it's a sense of overcoming adversity and pursuing your passion, right? So it's this idea that you need grit and resilience and fortitude to really see your passion come to fruition. But on the other side of all that hard work is this amazing life that you can live rooted in the American dream, right? So for me, it always comes back to politics, where it's this awesome opportunity for us to be involved civically and pursue our passion, because that's really the essence of the American dream here. And I think that sometimes that gets lost, right? We choose a career or a job for money or for some kind of security, but in the process, we lose our sense of passion and excitement. But that doesn't happen in Lancaster County. And that's not what we were hearing from the community leaders that we bring to speak to Next Generation of Lancaster. So I think it just creates this environment of excitement and ambition and opportunity.
And that's really great, I think, because there are so many organizations from a different lens or angle in Lancaster that's really focusing on how do we support the continuum of people's lives here in Lancaster. So what does it look like after high school and what people are choosing to do with their careers after that? And then how do they embed themselves in the Lancaster community here? We're a really relational, connected community too. So I think that like having those connections and bringing people together and having some of that wisdom sharing is really, really helpful. Um, I'm curious if you guys would want to highlight some events that you've hosted with Next Generation Lancaster that have been really helpful or just really like unified the group within the community.
Sure. So I guess I'll start from the beginning. Where Next Generation really took off is the event Jordan just mentioned, networking night at Cabalar. That was back in November 2024, and like Jordan said, Steve and Brock spoke about their life journeys and how Ula Bowl started, how Cabalar started, and the industry knowledge behind the scenes there. And we saw about, I'd say, 70 people come to that event. And I'll be honest, EJ and I, when we were setting up this event, like we thought we were gonna greet people walking in the door, like, hey, how you doing? Like, here's my card, this, and that. And we got overran. So many people just walked in the door all at once. And we went with the flow and we put on a great event. I received a lot of great feedback and a lot of compliments and very appreciative of all of those. And then we realized like after that event, like people want to know when is the next one. So EJ and I are like, we didn't have one planned. We didn't have another event planned. So up on stage with the mic, I just made something up and said, yeah, our next event's in February. And EJ and I are like, EJ looked at me, he's like, we have another event in February, KJ? And I was like, no, I just had to say that. Like, so we took those last couple of months to one, build a team. And as Jordan mentioned, we sent out a Google form to ask for volunteers. So one was building the team and then strategically planning next events. So our next event was in February at Loxley's restaurant. A gentleman named Brian Rudder. He spoke about personal branding and growth strategies behind that. And he spent some time at Willow Valley. He was their CMO. And that event was great. Not trying to be biased, but it was a great turnout. Brian was a great speaker. So with that event as well, that was our first event that we had a sponsor, and that was our first event that we had a ticketed price with it. So our sponsor was the High Center, and a gentleman named Dwight Bechtold spoke on behalf of the High Center. And then, like I said, that was a ticketed event, so we had food involved and access to the networking event. And you have to cover costs when you have these events at venues. So that was a learning curve as well. And we saw probably about 50 people come to that event. So as we're gaining momentum and gaining great feedback, you got to stay on top of it and you got to have these next events planned out. So, as much as I enjoy the present day event, I'm really looking forward to pitching and preparing for the next event, just to keep that momentum going. So, um, in March, we had a lunch and learn here at Kegel's Produce. A man named Bill Stratton spoke about the EOS system, stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System, and I coined a funny joke with our next gen team about this because we saw about 50 people come to that, and I was blown away because somehow, some way, next gen of Lancaster drew 50 some people out of their workday to attend a lunch at Kegel's, and I called it the greatest lunch I've learned of all time. So that was great. That was a lot of fun. And then April, we had an event at Forklift and Pallet. It's a restaurant, Spooky Nook. Former WJL News anchor Barbara Barr led a panel discussion with Coach Danny Walk from Hempfield Basketball and Coach Todd Mealy with McCaskey Football. And that was a very motivating and inspirational event. These two guys and Barbara, they led the room, and everybody was blown away and received a lot of great feedback from that event. So yeah, we have the whole rest of the year mapped out in terms of having an event each month, and on top of that, we find ways to give back to the community as well, whether that's partnering up with nonprofits or attending 5K races or 5 mile races in Lancaster City. So um, as we're hosting events, we're always trying to find ways to give back as well.
That's awesome. And what I'm really getting from that story is like, especially with like the first event you all had and not expecting to have the turnout that you had and kind of that continuing is people really want this connection and they were wanting a space for this. And so
Hmm.
maybe like more than you even thought would be happening, people are relying on next generation to have some answers. um so I'm curious if we want to shift to that. Like, what are some things that, as you're getting out into the community more and people are really instilling a lot of hope in what the next generation of Lancaster is going to look like, what are things that you're hearing that are coming up often in that space? And what do people maybe like want to collaborate with you all on or learn from you, those sorts of things?
Yeah, I could answer this quickly, and then Jordan, you could give your 2 cents. But um, I would ask people like, why are you coming to our events? Why do you believe in me, my team, and the next generation of Lancaster? And it's a consistent feedback of KJ, you guys are all young. You're doing something great, and I want to be a part of that movement. And when you hear feedback like that, that really comes to that, it sits home. And very fortunate and blessed and grateful for all the feedback. And on top of that, too, I've received feedback from the older generation, and they're like, KJ, I don't know if I should come to these events. I'm older. Like, I'm not the next generation. And my answer to that is like, yes, you might be older, you might be a seasoned professional, but we need your help. We need to learn from you and your wisdom to build this next generation of Lancaster. And once I say that, then there's an understanding, and we see them come to our events.
Yeah, and to build on that, I think that movement piece is critical, right? We're not just another networking group or organization, it's a movement. We feel that positive energy and momentum that's really fostered between building those relationships between the aspiring leaders and then the seasoned professionals that KJ just mentioned. And I think one of the things that people are hungry for is this idea of taking advice from people who have done what we aspire to do. We hear that all the time, that it's really important to learn from those who have already done the thing. And that's exactly what we want. So we want the next generation to be there, the ones that are going to push each other to be the most personally and professionally excellent versions of ourselves. But in order for us to really learn and thrive as the next generation, we absolutely need to foster mentor mentee connection with the current generation who knows exactly what they're talking about and are at the top of their respective fields. So when we're planning these events and when we're talking to people at them, I think that's what really draws people out. And we try to be really intentional with that when we create the events, right? So we are trying to produce relevant topics and bring conversations to the table that can transcend any one industry and are just good across the board. I think the perfect example of that is that at that last event with the coaches, what they teach their athletes on the field directly relates to our professional lives in any single respective field that we embark on, right? It's not specific to business or marketing. It is transcendent, really. And that's another thing that we try to foster is this inclusivity and this idea that these lessons can apply broadly across our respective industries.
Yeah, so what I'm gathering is like the function of Next Generation Lancaster is a couple things. One is getting young people together to build a strong network amongst themselves, but also kind of fostering some intergenerational learning moments because there are so many really successful parts of Lancaster, our business community being one of them. And if you all in your group have so many people who are, entrepreneurs really trying to learn from people who have done well for themselves in Lancaster, there's some specificity to that that may not translate to other communities if people were to apply some of that same knowledge base. So I think that's really great to just connect. Um,
Leah, if I could say one more thing,
Please,
sorry to
yeah.
interrupt, but back in March, we partnered up with SHV Partners. So Ruby Knoll, a consultant of theirs at the time, reached out to us, and we had a networking event around March Madness. So we got together at Iron Hill, and then the next day, this was just our next gen team. We gathered at the Candy Factory in downtown Lancaster, and we had a strategic planning session. And I won't go into too much detail about that day, but my biggest takeaway was they asked us, what are three values that you believe in next generation of Lancaster and in yourself? And I kid you not, everybody wrote down integrity, and that meant a lot. And that's the team we have here. And yeah, when you hear everybody in the room say integrity, that means a lot.
That's really cool. I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah.
And like I warned you all, this time goes by really quickly. So with about 5 minutes left, I want to recap a couple things that maybe we should have started with. When I first heard about Next Generation Lancaster, I heard that you had about 600 members in your LinkedIn group. Is that still true? Is that still about like where we're at?
No. We're over 700 now.
Amazing. Okay, so growing all the time. You
Hmm.
guys are targeting the next generation of Lancaster, but with kind of like a broad interpretation of what that looks like. So supporting young people in Lancaster, with the like very open and invited support of every generational member of this community. Um, I'm curious if you guys have started to talk about this, and maybe this is what you were talking about with your strategic planning and that you guys aren't ready to share, but like, have you thought about making Next Generation Lancaster a business or an organization that would kind of stand on its own here in Lancaster?
Yeah, we talked about that. I mean, the name and the business, it is an LLC. And there are goals that we want to hit down the road, but at the same time, we got to remain present, but also, think to the future. But you don't want to think too far down the road because you got to stay present. But yeah, we're growing. We're building a website here soon that we're excited to launch, and strategically leveling ourselves up as much as we can.
Sure.
And I think we'll go wherever the need is, right? So we try to be very intentional at our biweekly calls that our leadership team has with the event planning. And we say, okay, so what venue do we want to have this at? And we choose a local spot that we know that people in the Lancaster community really love. And what sponsors do we want to have, right? We want people to buy into this and see the value, and we want it to be a symbiotically beneficial relationship. And we plan the menu strategically. Does it have options for people of different dietary restrictions, right? Do we have a raffle that's supporting our local business owners that's going to give back to the community and vote with our dollar and put our dollar right back into the Lancaster economy, right? So every aspect from the speaker to the people to the individual invites, it's all intentional. And I think with that comes a level of just taking it one event at a time and going all in, leaving no cards left on the table and making sure it functions at peak capacity. And we'll hopefully have a lot of doors open along the way. And we're just excited to see where it takes us, really.
That's awesome. I'm so impressed to see like such a motivated group of people who are working on this and seeing the results that you all are looking for. I think, I've said this to you guys outside of this call and in this call, there are so many people in this community who are really invested in what our next generation, the tools that we have to be able to show up for this community and continue a lot of the legacy of this of what we've seen be so successful here in Lancaster. And there's like such interesting parallels with the story as I hear about like the beginnings of Next Generation Lancaster. And what I've learned is the history here at the Hourglass as well. And, things really start as an idea and like a small group of people who care about something, and then it really expands. And I think what you guys are seeing, people are really showing up and they really care about what you're doing. Um, I'm curious if there's any ways, this will be shared with our Hourglass community, if there's any ways that you all are hoping to be supported in your work or things that you're looking for in the future that you would want to share about.
Yeah, if you want to get involved, feel free to come to our events, reach out. Let's just start a conversation. And that's at the end of the day, that's the goal behind this group is to have a meaningful conversation and to build and grow off of one another.
Awesome.
Yeah, you can definitely join our LinkedIn group, Next Generation of Lancaster. And we're looking for community partners in every sense of the word imaginable, right? We need people to join our movement, to show up at these events and to push each other to be the most personally excellent versions of ourselves. We need speakers who are at the top of their respective fields and can disseminate some of that information to us so that we can learn from them. We need event sponsors to keep the price of the events low and still be able to offer amazing food and support local venues and have fun raffles, right? So there are tons of ways to be involved as you see fit. And we're looking for kind of putting all the pieces together as they fall naturally. So there's the possibilities are endless, really.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you both for the time that you've spent kind of learning about the Hourglass and investing in what we're doing. We're very invested in what you're doing, and it was just great to learn a little bit more about it. So thanks for your time. Thanks for sharing about what you're doing at Next Gen. And definitely, keep us in the loop.
Thank you so much, Leah.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us, Leah. Appreciate it.